Familiar spirits and monitoring spirits are concepts that are often confused, but have significant differences. As someone who has walked a long way on this spiritual journey, I can tell you that understanding these differences is crucial to protecting your life and your spiritual well-being. Familiar spirits are entities that have a deep and long-standing connection with a person or family. They are called familiar because they know the patterns, weaknesses, and stories of the family over the generations. These spirits can be particularly dangerous because they operate with intimate knowledge of their victims. They know how to manipulate situations and emotions much more effectively. On the other hand, monitoring spirits are like spiritual spies. They observe and collect information, but they don't have the same depth of personal knowledge as familiar spirits. They act like spiritual paparazzi, always on the prowl, ready to capture any detail that can be used against you. Their main weapon is the information they can observe and report. When I refer to familiar spirits as more dangerous, I'm talking about their ability to directly influence your emotions and actions based on deep personal knowledge. They can trigger negative behavior patterns that have been passed down from generation to generation, becoming a cycle that is difficult to break. One of the most important things we need to understand about monitoring spirits is that they have significant limitations. They are not omniscient. Unlike God, who is omniscient and knows all things, these spirits can only act on the basis of the information they possess or can obtain through observation. As a spiritual authority, I can say that God's power is incomparable. God knows your every thought, your every desire, and your every move. Monitoring spirits, on the other hand, are limited to what they can see and hear. They don't have the ability to read minds or accurately predict the future. They base their actions on the information they gather, which means you have the power to limit their reach. For example, if you keep your personal life and plans secret, the monitoring spirits have less material to work with. They can't manipulate what they don't know. They are like detectives who need clues to put together a case. Without these clues, their effectiveness is drastically reduced. Therefore, one of the best ways to protect yourself against these spirits is to be cautious about what you share, especially in public spaces or with people you don't know intimately. By doing so, you are essentially cutting off their source of information and limiting their ability to cause harm. The story of Samson and Delilah, found in the book of Judges, chapter 16, is a classic example that illustrates the work of monitoring spirits. Samson was a judge and warrior from Israel, endowed with superhuman strength, whose secret lay in never cutting his hair, according to a Nazirite vow made to God. Delilah, in the biblical narrative, is a woman who becomes romantically involved with Samson, but secretly works for the Philistines, Israel's enemies. Delilah can be seen as an agent of the monitoring spirits. Her mission was to discover the secret of Samson's strength in order to neutralize him. She used her closeness and intimacy with Samson to extract vital information. Note how she persistently asked Samson about the secret of his strength, until he finally gave in and revealed that his strength was in his hair. This episode demonstrates how monitoring spirits operate. They infiltrate our lives through people who appear to be trustworthy, but who actually have hidden intentions. Samson's fall teaches us a valuable lesson about the importance of keeping our secrets and being cautious about who we share them with. If Samson had been more vigilant and reserved, he might not have been betrayed and captured. The story of Samson and Delilah alerts us to the spiritual vigilance needed in our lives. Do you want to strengthen your faith and discernment? Take part in the 21-day spiritual challenge and discover how to protect your soul from negative influences. Check out the link in the first fixed comment. The importance of silence is an often underestimated but immensely important principle, especially when we consider the influence of monitoring spirits. In the spiritual life, silence on certain issues is not just a practice of prudence, but a strategy of protection. When I share personal secrets and life goals, I open a window for monitoring spirits to obtain information that can be used to sabotage my plans. These spirits don't have the ability to read our minds, but they act based on the information they receive. Therefore, the less information they have, the less chance of negative interference. The Bible advises us in Proverbs to guard our words. He who guards his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from trouble. Proverbs 21:23. This does not mean that we should live in constant fear or paranoia, but rather that we should be selective and wise about what we share, and with whom. Silence in this context is a form of spiritual armor. It is an act of wisdom and self-control. By keeping certain information private, I am protecting my dreams, my plans, and even the people I love. This doesn't mean that we should live in isolation or distrust everyone, but rather that we should discern spiritually and use silence strategically. Sharing less about our intentions and plans also helps us stay focused and avoid distractions. By not revealing our goals, we avoid criticism and negative influences that can discourage us or divert us from our objectives. Therefore, the practice of silence is a shield against adverse spiritual influences, and at the same time, a tool that helps us maintain clarity and concentration on our spiritual and life path. It is a reminder that, often, what is not said is just as important as what is said. It may sound like a cliché, but the saying, "Tell me who you're with, and I'll tell you who you are," has a very deep truth to it, especially when we talk about the spiritual influence of the people around us. When we think of monitoring spirits, it's easy to imagine supernatural entities watching our steps. However, these spiritual influences often come to us through the people closest to us, such as family and friends. You may have had the feeling that someone close to you has a different, perhaps even negative, energy that seems to hinder your plans and achievements. This is no coincidence. People around us can, even unintentionally, become channels for negative spiritual influences. It's as if they were antennae that pick up and transmit vibrations that can interfere in our lives. Let's imagine that you share an important plan, such as opening a new business or a career change decision, with someone who is unknowingly being influenced by monitoring spirits. This information can be used to create obstacles in your path. I'm not saying that we need to become paranoid, but rather more selective and cautious about who we share our goals and dreams with. It's a question of discernment and spiritual protection. I myself have experienced situations in which, when sharing a project with someone, impediments arose that seemed to come out of nowhere. It was only after much time and reflection that I realized that some of these people, even without malicious intent, were being influenced by energies that didn't want me to progress. It is therefore essential to make a careful assessment of the people in our closest circle. This doesn't mean cutting off relationships, but understanding that not everyone is ready to receive certain information. By maintaining a vigilant and prudent attitude, we protect not only our plans, but also our spiritual well-being. On life's journey, we meet people who can be real angels, the so-called destiny helpers. These are the people who somehow appear on our path to help us achieve our goals, offering support, guidance, and even resources. But just as there are these angels, there are also destiny destroyers who are strategically placed to hinder our progress. These negative figures may not be easily recognizable. They often disguise themselves as friends, work colleagues, or even well-meaning family members. It's important to be vigilant and take a critical look at the influences in our lives. An effective way of doing this is to observe the fruits of these relationships. Ask yourself, is this person helping me to grow and evolve, or is he or she constantly putting obstacles in my way? I remember a friend who, whenever I shared a new idea or plan, had a criticism or a reason for me not to go ahead. At first, I thought he was just being realistic and trying to protect me from possible failure. But over time, I realized that his words were demotivating me and undermining my self-confidence. It was a painful but necessary process to distance myself from this negative influence. On the other hand, destiny's helpers are those people who inspire us, who believe in our potential, and who often help us in ways we never imagined possible. They can appear in times of need and provide exactly what we need to take the next step. A clear example of this is the story of Joseph in Egypt. He encountered both helpers of destiny, like Pharaoh's cupbearer, and destroyers of destiny, like the brothers who sold him into slavery. The difference lies in how he dealt with each situation and how he was able to recognize the opportunities that arose. Identifying who our helpers and destroyers of destiny are is crucial to our journey. It's a question of keeping our eyes and heart open, discerning with wisdom and gratitude those who are on our side to lift us up, and taking the necessary steps to protect us from those who, consciously or unconsciously, are on the path to bring us down. Let's start by talking about Jesus, a powerful example of how monitoring spirits can act. When Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist, the heavens opened and a voice proclaimed, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." At that moment, his divine identity was publicly revealed. It's no coincidence that shortly after this revelation, Jesus was led into the desert to be tempted by Satan. Jesus' temptation in the desert is a clear example of how monitoring spirits act on the basis of the information they obtain. Satan, knowing Jesus' identity, tried to use it to divert him from his mission. He offered him power, riches, and even tried to exploit his physical needs by suggesting that he turn stones into bread. This story teaches us that by revealing important information about our lives, we open doors to spiritual attacks. Jesus, of course, resisted the temptations and remained steadfast in his mission. But the lesson here is that we should be cautious about exposing our vulnerabilities and achievements. If even Jesus, the Son of God, was the target of spiritual monitoring, how much more so must we ordinary human beings be on our guard? I always say, as someone who has been through many trials and learned from them, that discretion is a powerful ally. When we keep certain information secret, we protect our dreams and goals from prying eyes, whether human or spiritual. Jesus' example shows us that even in moments of divine revelation, vigilance is essential. Now let's talk about being careful with the information we share. We live in an age where everything is recorded and shared instantly. Social networks, informal conversations, even venting with close friends can become sources of information for monitoring spirits. Monitoring spirits don't have access to all information like God does. They only know what they see and hear. Therefore, the more we reveal about our lives, the more ammunition we give these spirits to cause trouble. For example, if you share your detailed plans about a new business, a monitoring spirit can use this information to create unexpected obstacles. I myself have seen people miss out on great opportunities because they talk too much about their plans. Sometimes the difficulties we face are not mere coincidences, but consequences of having said too much. It's essential to be selective with what we share and with whom we share it. Being discreet doesn't mean being paranoid or suspicious of everyone. It's about wisdom and protection. Think of your secrets and plans as seeds planted in a garden. If you tell everyone where these seeds are planted, some may trample them underfoot, intentionally or not. But if you tend to them in silence, they have a much greater chance of flourishing. In short, caution with shared information is an act of self-preservation. Learn to appreciate the value of silence and discretion. Only share important details with people you absolutely trust, and even then, in moderation. Protect your dreams and plans like precious treasures because, in fact, they are.